The rain fell hard against the broken windows of the old train station, a place long forgotten by the city. The cracked tiles, the moss-covered benches, and the rusting iron rails seemed to echo with the ghosts of the past. And it was here, under the storm's veil, that Daniel stood, waiting for the man who had destroyed his life. Daniel was not always a man filled with rage. Once, he had been a gentle husband, a loving father, and a trusted friend. His world had revolved around two people, his wife, Claire, and their daughter, Emily. They lived quietly in a modest home on the edge of town, surrounded by wildflowers and laughter. But all of that was ripped away one night, 5 years ago, when betrayal, greed, and cruelty converged into one horrifying act. It was Claire's childhood friend, Richard, who had shattered their world. Richard was charming, ambitious, and ruthless beneath his smile. He had been Daniel's business partner too, someone Daniel trusted like a brother. But envy is a slow poison, and Richard could not tolerate the life Daniel had built. He wanted everything Daniel had: his company, his wife, and even the peace that came with his simple happiness. Richard had devised the plan with precision. He framed Daniel for embezzlement, planting fake records and manipulated accounts. The accusations spread quickly, and Daniel, once respected, became the town's outcast overnight. But that was not enough for Richard. One night, as Daniel worked late to gather evidence to prove his innocence, Richard came to their home. He arrived with a smile, a bottle of wine, and promises of friendship. But behind his mask lay darker intentions. Claire never had the chance to fight back. Her body was found the next morning, lifeless, her face twisted in terror. Emily, just 7 years old, was never found. The police believed she had been kidnapped, but whispers said otherwise. Some believed Richard had taken her, others that she was lost forever. And Daniel, broken and accused, spent years fighting to clear his name while his world fell to ashes. The courts eventually dismissed the charges when new evidence surfaced, but it was too late. His wife was dead, his daughter gone, and the man responsible had vanished, leaving behind only a trail of rumors and blood. Daniel knew one thing: Richard was alive, and justice through the law would never reach him. Revenge would. For 5 long years, Daniel searched. He traveled across cities, following fragments of whispers in dim bars, hints from drifters, and names scribbled in notebooks. He taught himself patience, discipline, and silence. He became a shadow, a man who spoke little but observed everything. And finally, his hunt led him back to the city, to the abandoned train station where Richard had agreed to meet an unknown buyer for his latest deal. The storm raged as Daniel gripped the knife hidden in his coat. He had thought about guns, poison, even fire. But in the end, revenge needed to be personal. It had to be felt with every breath, every heartbeat. Richard would not just die, he would understand. The screech of tires pulled Daniel's thoughts back to the present. A black car rolled into the station yard, headlights slicing through the rain. The driver stepped out first, tall and silent, scanning the surroundings. Then Richard emerged, dressed in a sleek coat, his face older but his arrogance untouched. He looked around carelessly, as though the world still belonged to him. Daniel stepped from the shadows. Richard froze when their eyes met, and for the first time in years, a flicker of fear crossed his face. "Daniel," he whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. "I thought you were dead." Daniel's voice was cold, steady. "You thought wrong." Richard laughed nervously, though his eyes darted toward the driver. "Listen, I know things happened, things got out of control. But we're both survivors. We don't have to." "Where is Emily?" Daniel interrupted, his words sharp as blades. The smirk faded from Richard's lips. His silence was answer enough. Rage surged through Daniel, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was not the moment to lose control. Not yet. The driver reached for something under his coat, but Daniel was faster. With a swift movement, he hurled a piece of rusted iron from the floor. It struck the man's temple, sending him crashing to the ground. Richard stumbled backward, his mask of confidence shattering. "You took everything from me," Daniel said, stepping closer. Rain dripped down his face, mixing with tears he refused to acknowledge. "You killed Claire. You took Emily. You destroyed our lives for your greed." Richard raised his hands, desperation breaking through his arrogance. Daniel, wait. You don't understand. Emily, she's alive. The world seemed to freeze. Daniel's chest tightened as the storm outside roared louder. Alive, he whispered. Richard nodded quickly. She's not here, but she's alive. I gave her away, to people who could. The rest of his sentence ended in a scream as Daniel's knife cut across his arm. Blood spilled, staining the rain-soaked floor. Don't lie to me, Daniel roared. His voice carried the weight of 5 years of pain, echoing through the empty station like thunder. I'm telling the truth, Richard cried, clutching his wound. She's alive. I can tell you where she is. Just don't kill me. Daniel hesitated, his mind torn between fury and desperate hope. The thought that Emily might still breathe, somewhere in this vast and cruel world, was enough to shake his resolve. But then he remembered Claire's lifeless body, the betrayal etched into her final expression, and the fire inside him burned hotter. Even if she is alive, Daniel whispered, his voice trembling with rage, you don't get to live. He lunged forward, his knife piercing Richard's chest. The scream that followed was drowned out by the storm. Richard staggered, blood gushing, eyes wide with disbelief. Daniel's face was inches from his as he twisted the blade. This, he hissed, is for Claire. For Emily. For everything. Richard gasped, trying to speak, but his strength faded. His body collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around him. Daniel stood over him, chest heaving, knife dripping red. For the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders lifted, though it was replaced with a hollow emptiness. The driver moaned, struggling to rise, but Daniel silenced him with a brutal strike. The station fell quiet again, save for the storm outside. Daniel stared down at Richard's corpse, waiting for the satisfaction to come. But it didn't. Revenge had been his purpose, his breath, his heartbeat for 5 years. Now that it was done, all that remained was silence. He turned to leave, but a sound stopped him. A faint, delicate sound, a voice. Daniel froze, his pulse racing. He followed it through the broken corridors of the station until he reached a hidden room. And there, in the dim light, sat a girl. Her hair was longer now, her eyes older, but Daniel knew them instantly. Emily, he whispered, his voice breaking for the first time. The girl looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. Daddy, she asked softly. Daniel fell to his knees, pulling her into his arms as the storm raged above them. The nightmare was not over, the scars would never fade. But in that moment, amidst the ruin and blood, he found the one thing he thought was lost forever. His daughter. And for the first time since that terrible night, Daniel allowed himself to hope.